We had quite a good, doing a veterans thing about 4 or 5, maybe more years, I don't know, getting too old to look back. And we got a good cross-section, as Matt just said. We've got a gentleman was from Massachusetts and had a varied career in many disciplines in racing. We have a gentleman from New Hampshire who was noted for his hard driving techniques and both sides of the Vermont and New Hampshire border. And we had a gentleman that got out of Connecticut pretty early on and moved to California. And I know, as far as I'm concerned, whenever I read about him, he kind of made me proud knowing that he was from New England. And so we'll say a few words about Mr. James Moffat first. Before the war, he dabbled in sprint cars, but he soon learned he wasn't a driver, as Justin St. Louis did. And after the war, he still owned a sprint car, and he had a few pretty decent drivers in it. Unfortunately, one of which was from my home area. They were running Jim's car at Warrensburg, New York, when a push truck pulled out in front of this gentleman who was already on the track, and he inserted the sprint car under the bed of the push truck and unfortunately was killed. So Mr. Moffat went on to other things, ended up promoting racing. Probably best known, besides cavalcade, he did a lot of PR work for the Oilsome Company out of Worcester. And got promoting, was very instrumental in the early racing champions at Langhorne for the Oilsome Company, sponsoring qualifying races throughout the Northeast. And you'd always see a picture in the Illustrated Speedway News and National of Jim Moffat handing a case of Oilsome to somebody. And who amongst us didn't collect many Oilsome stickers from various racetracks? Now at some point he decided he had a little novelty company, sold stuff at the tracks too. But he started publishing a pictorial magazine, which those of us that had a historical bent, we found that and was like, wow, this is like the Holy Grail. I mean, we had heard of places like Spud Speedway, but nobody ever saw a picture of it in the Illustrated Speedway News. For whatever reason, they were way up there north of the frost line. But we got to learn what the things look like in other parts of the country, mostly the Northeast, but he covered everything and he had a great deal of historical stuff going on. He started putting that thing out once or twice a year, and eventually went to quarterly, and at some point around 1967, he decided he was going to put out a monthly magazine covering racing with stories, etc., bi-monthly in the off-season. And so it started coming out, and lo and behold, that's where I believe, he'll correct me in a moment if I'm wrong, but had a meeting with Jim Moffat and Dick Bergman at the old farmhouse up at the Thompson Speedway, and we were going to assist him in his efforts, and it worked out pretty good for Bergman. He's on TV, and I'm home retired. But Jim Moffat did quite a bit for racing, and he's not exactly a low-key guy, but not many people heard of him. But as we felt, a few of us over the years, that there are a lot of people that would fade from memory if we don't do something eventually, and unfortunately we only allow about 3 a year, so we'll do the best we can. And to accept the award for Jim Moffat, I'd like to ask the aforementioned Dick Bergman to come on up here and say a few words. Come on up, Dick.
Thanks, R.A. He's right. That's where I got my start in journalism, was from Jim Moffat. I had written him a letter, and I thought maybe we could do a little bit better with photography than was being published. He said, come on up. The next thing I knew, all of a sudden I was a journalist. I didn't want that. All I wanted to do was run my pictures. But Moffat was a very persuasive person, and he talked a lot of people into and out of a lot of things. He was certainly one of the very first people that got corporations involved in local short track racing. And many are those who, indeed, Bobby's right, who stood there in Victory Lane with a case of Oilsome oil and also a trophy that said Oilsome on it. And how Moffat managed to get Oilsome involved in it, we'll probably never know, because that's gone and Jim is gone as well. But that was a big part of the foundation of where we went. His cavalcade of auto racing, which did start out as just a pictorial, but what a wonderful pictorial it was. There'd be 6 or 8 pictures of race cars from tracks you knew existed, but maybe you'd never seen it before. And there it was, Bill Wimble from Fonda Speedway, Bugsy Stevens from Seekonk Speedway, people from all over the eastern seaboard, and eventually even California and the Midwest. And it was terrific to be able to see what race cars from around the country looked like. And as it went on, it seemed as if cavalcade of auto racing became more and more important until the day finally that it went away. Jim also was a PR man, did PR for a lot of places, including Thompson Speedway. He was one of the real pioneers of our sport, and it is so appropriate that he is recognized and remembered here this afternoon. Jim Moffat, truly deserving of being part of the Near Hall of Fame.